Commissioner, proceed.
May proceed.
May it please the court. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Today, you have heard how my client, the chair of the Midlands Gambling Commission, is being accused of bribing the owner of the Black Bear Casino, Ms. Bancroft. Now, this all begins when the Midlands Gambling Commission announced that they were ready to seek proposals in order to issue a new casino license in the state of Midlands. Two proposals came into the office of the Midlands Gambling Commission. One proposal coming from the owner of the Black Bear Casino, Avery Bancroft. Now, Ms. Bancroft is a very experienced businesswoman and has experience running specifically the business of casinos. The other proposal that came into the office of the Midlands Gambling Commission came from a local poker player who has no business experience. Members of the jury, my client, Chase Covington, simply made the better vote. And at that, my client, Chase Covington, was not the only one on the Gambling Commission who voted to approve the casino license to Ms. Bancroft. Another one of the colleagues on the Midlands Gambling Commission also felt that Ms. Bancroft's proposal was just simply the better vote. Now, the prosecution has a burden that they have to prove to you today beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution first has to prove to you that, one, Chase Covington is a government official. Two, that Chase Covington acted with the intent of being influenced on an official government act. And three, that Chase Covington received something of value or benefit in exchange for his vote. Now, the prosecution has failed to prove to you two of these elements. The first element that I'll touch on that the prosecution has failed to prove to you today is that Chase Covington acted with the intent to be influenced. Now, in every witness that the prosecution brought up here before you today, none of them have even recalled my client, Chase Covington, ever saying the words money or mentioning the word bribe. None of the witnesses in this entire courtroom have ever heard Chase Covington referring to money or bribe. Neither that of Ms. Bancroft. The second element that the prosecution has failed to prove to you today is that Chase Covington received something of value in return for his vote. Now, the prosecution called before you three witnesses. The first witness that the prosecution called upon you is Ms. Bancroft's executive assistant, Corey Hyde. Corey Hyde testified that she saw Mr. Covington pick up his briefcase and say, "I'm going to need a new one of these if you catch my drift." Mr. Covington came on the stand and testified that that was just a joke, that briefcase that he had in that meeting was a dingy briefcase, and that he in fact wanted a new briefcase. Corey Hyde also testified on stand during cross-examination that she never saw Ms. Bancroft give money to the chair of the Midlands Gambling Commission, Chase Covington. The second witness that the prosecution called was a bellhop named Devin Del Sesto. Del Sesto testified that the briefcase in which he saw was a dingy briefcase while Mr. Covington was playing poker with Ms. Bancroft on April 16th. My client, Mr. Covington, came on this stand and said that the briefcase in which he had at that meeting was not a dingy briefcase, that was in fact the newer briefcase that he had purchased. My client said, now the third witness that the prosecution called before you today is a forensic analyst, Pat Sikorsky. Sikorsky testified that Ms. Bancroft's fingerprints were all over the briefcase, all over the latches, inside and outside of the briefcase. He also testified that Ms. Bancroft's hair was found inside of the briefcase. My client, Chase Covington, came on stand and testified that the reason for Ms. Bancroft's fingerprints and hair being on this briefcase was simply that she ran into Ms. Bancroft at the casino while she was gambling before the vote occurred, and that she showed her briefcase to Ms. Bancroft. Her and Ms. Bancroft were friends. Mr. Covington said that Ms. Bancroft touched the briefcase in all type of ways. My point is, in this trial, nobody saw Chase Covington accept any money from Avery Bancroft. The prosecution has not proved their burden that my client, Chase Covington, received something in benefit or value to him in exchange for his vote. My client, Chase Covington, simply chose the better vote. He voted for who was more experienced to run a very profitable business in Midlands that would bring in great economic contribution to the city. My client simply had voted the better vote. Thank you.